Hi there, this is an introduction and overview to BriFormer, the format analysis software that I created. This is version 1.0, and when you get to the home page, it'll look like this. This is the dashboard where you can start a new analysis and learn about the program, provide any feedback, list keyboard shortcuts. Here's where older versions are, is the original one, and information about it if you want to learn more about it. At the top, though, is probably what you'll be using. These are the links to start the new analysis, and there are basically two modes. One is using an audio file that you already own, and the other is using something from that you can find on YouTube. So we'll start with the YouTube example. So I'll go up here to create a new BriForm using a YouTube link, and right away it'll say, give me the URL. So I have one ready here. This song, Acid Rain by Lauren, and I can either just copy the URL that's up here, or you can go to share and copy the URL there. Either one will work. So I'll go back here, paste it in, and then I'm ready to go. So the top is the editing environment, and then down here the different aspects of the program that you'll be using to manipulate your analysis. If you're using a YouTube video, it'll show up here on the bottom. If you're not, then there'll just be nothing there. And so what you do is you probably spend a lot of time in this editing menu, which will allow you to zoom into your diagram, because this is a long timeline and it represents the same timeline that you'll see in the video. So let me demo that real quick. So as you can see down here, this one has started and now this one started. So you can click on this timeline or touch if you're on a mobile device, and it'll just move through the video in the locations. You can also move down here. It'll have the same sort of effect. What you do is you have this base layer that represents the entire musical thing. You're basically splitting it into groups. So it'll split it right wherever the little line is. And there are keyboard shortcuts for everything. So the keyboard shortcut for split is S. So I can just do them a lot faster. And so you split the bottom layer into individual groups, and then basically what you do is you group those things into further higher up groups. So I'll take these two and put them in a group, and I'll take these two and put them in a group. And the way the grouping works is it'll just take the first and the last thing that you have selected. So it'll bound, if I do this one, it'll bound from here all the way over to there. And there are some rules about the grouping where you can't just group anywhere. You need to group something that's on the bottom layer, and you can't have overlapping groups. So for example, if I try to group this and this, it'll produce an error and say you can't do that. There's a parent group that starts or ends during the middle of these two groups, and you can't have overlapping boundaries in that way. So that'll keep it nice and hierarchical as you work. There are two different ways of deleting. I think I'm going to back out to nothing here to show what that looks like. So it works, it's the clearest if I split this into three groups. So if I have the center group and you want to delete it, you kind of have a decision to make about, do you want it to merge with the left one or merge with the right one? And so that's why there's two delete buttons. So if I press this one, you can see the little icon is showing whatever one's highlighted, the thing from the left is what's going to move over. So click that one. And if I did the other one, it'll go from the right. I'll join with the right. So that'll be helpful, especially as your diagram gets more complex. It'll actually give you a little more flexibility. Okay, play and pause buttons do the same thing as the play and pause buttons down here. This is especially useful if you just have the regular audio file. You can also unselect anything. I put two unselect buttons up here because you might need it a lot when you're in the other menus. But you can also press escape. That's the keyboard shortcut for that. And then for the different shapes. So there's lots of different shapes that you might use. And some of them are dashed, and some of them are square, some of them are round, some of them are missing parts, some of them have elisions. So I can just click on these as a demonstration. These different angled ones and such. So what I typically do is the default one is the rounded arc, and for me that usually means there's like a completed phrase, kind of beginning, middle, end sort of paradigm. That of course depends on what type of genre you're dealing with, but that's kind of how I use it. And then I use subgroups that are kind of part of a larger phrase, I use the square one. So you might see something that looks more like that in an analysis that I would do. The dashed versus the solid has meaning for me as well. I use the dash to mean an external auxiliary section, like a prefix or a suffix, or like an intro or a coda. That's what those mean to me. So my analysis might start in something like that. The elision ones are when one group ends at the exact same moment that another one starts. So you kind of have a couple options here. One is just to have just a single overlap. You think there's an overlap there, but I tend to, if it's a real elision, it's usually both of them are starting and ending, and so I tend to do a starting and ending one there. But you can align both directions if you needed to. Get rid of those. And so that's the same thing for if you want to do an arc. Let's say I wanted to do an arc here. That's what those do. That's what the little lighter line means, where you'll see the elision either on the left or the right or both. And you can also do that for the dashed ones. These are kind of ones you might not use all that often, but they kind of offer some flexibility. These are things that don't have beginnings or don't have an ending. So if you had something like that, let's say the intro never came to an ending, you might do something along those lines to kind of indicate something out of the ordinary. You can also use that to kind of break something up into pieces, especially these here with this one that's a solid one. Let me back out of this. So if you wanted to use this top one, what this would allow you to do is take what looks like a single arc and then basically break it into multiple pieces, which you might use different colors for those pieces as needed. So if I use that one, this is a symbol you probably won't use that often, but you can see how I can combine it here. And so now it looks like I have this larger grouping, and that will allow me to do some more intricate things, like when I get into the color menu, so you can color everything, and it'll just cover the outline, it doesn't fill it in. But if I want to do something like this, it gives me a little bit more flexibility to have a shape be multiple colors and maybe capture something I wouldn't otherwise be able to. This part up here at the top is all of your recent colors, and it can be really handy as you're working on something. So it'll just kind of populate as you click the ones down here, but they'll stay up there so that you can make sure to have consistent colors as you work. There's also a transparent, which you might use if I did something like this. If there were something like a dramatic happening, like if you were watching or doing a musical theater analysis and all of a sudden there was some dialogue, you might want to have a space in there where it really looks like the music is not happening, something else is happening. So you can use transparent for that. You can also use it for if you wanted to put a title on it. So if you group everything together, you can put a title on the top, or one way you could put a title, doesn't have to do it this way, is you could mark it as transparent, and then in the text area, you can just put a title. And then it'll kind of look like the title is floating above your diagram. So that's one way that you might use that. Let me get back to a simpler diagram here. Okay, so when you're doing the text, there's three different areas. There's some stuff you can put on the top, stuff you can put inside of it, and stuff you can put at the bottom. So if I wanted to, I'm going to break this apart a little bit. If I want to put something above, primary theme, I don't know, some description, calm, something like that. I don't know what you would put there. I tend to use the stuff in the middle for comments or measure numbers or just some other information that's not really as critical as the actual formal label. The bottom level stuff goes there. I tend to put harmony information down there. So each one of them has a left, middle, and a right, so you can put things where you want. But I might put the key here, like F. And then maybe at the end I'll put a cadence or something like that. So that's how I tend to use those. All the different text ones have some styling options. If you want to do bold or italics or make it large or add some color into it, you can do that. You also have some font options for them, and those are listed here. The fonts, they kind of depend on what system you're using. These are very common fonts that most computers have, but some phones, like an Android phone, for example, might not have these as default fonts. So it won't break or anything like that. It'll just give you a more generic font. But if you are working on it and you know that you really do want Georgia or something, when you send that to another computer that has that font, it'll actually bring up Georgia over there. So that's how that works. That's why you might see more fonts than you have, especially if you're on an Android phone. Okay, so I think that's everything for there. Oh, there's also special symbols down there, especially if you're doing key areas. You might have something where you need a flat. And so, actually, let's put this in there like that. I always want to have serifs on my Roman numerals. So those are just some handy things that you might need. I use this arrow here is the process of becoming from Janet Schmaltfeld, so that's what that arrow is used for. Okay, and then for the saving and loading, there are kind of two ways that you're going to use this. Oh, I forgot to say, there's undo and redo. You can undo all your stuff there, or redo it right back, which will be really helpful as you work. And there's two ways to save. So one is to save an actual file. If you just want to keep the file for yourself, you can do that here with the save analysis to BriForm file, and I'll show you that in a second. But the create shareable link is a really good way to make something and then send it off to someone else, especially if you're using something from YouTube. This is a really easy way and fun way to share stuff. So if you create shareable link, this is the actual link, the text box there, and so you can copy that in the normal way, but you can also just click the button. And now it'll be on your clipboard, and then so you can email that to someone or post it on wherever you want, Facebook or whatever. Or you can just paste it into the browser, and then you're back, and everything's the way you had it, and all your favorite colors are there, and all that stuff, so you can keep working. Let's see. They could also, so this file, whatever you send someone, when you send it that way, they can start editing, and then they can just send it right back. It won't affect your original. It's a new version. So you don't have to worry about that if someone sends you one if you're working on someone else's. This is a totally new version. It's a new copy of it. Okay, so let's do the saving to an actual file. So if you're really working on something, you probably want to actually keep the file to yourself. So I can do that, save analysis to BriForm file. And the BriForm files are very small. They're just text files, really. And I already have one here. So the name of the group is Lorne, and the song is Acid Rain, and the .briform is the extension. Again, it's just a text file, but just that'll let you know that's what that's for. So save it anywhere. I already have one, so I'm just saving over it. So then when you want to load an analysis from a file, you click this bottom one on open down here on the dashboard, and open up the file, and let's see, just click on the one that you want, and then it'll load it back up just like it would have if you were sharing the link. But you've got that actual file. It's gonna, it has a more permanent nature to it. Okay, so the last thing is using your own audio. So I personally have lots of audio, and that's how I think of it. Well, most people tend to use the YouTube version, but click on the top one. So with this one, you actually have to have the audio. You're gonna be using your audio, but it will not be uploaded to my website because I don't want to hold on to a bunch of audio files for copyright reasons. So you need to maintain where you keep your file. So if you're going to share something that is using an audio file, you need to give them that audio file as well in order for this mode to work. Okay, so I'll choose my audio file, which I have this Mozart Dissonance Quartet file here, and then everything's just like normal. It's actually even faster if you have your own audio file to work with. You can create a shareable link, save the file, just like you would have before. But okay, so that was creating from an audio file, and then if you want to load it in, again, same sort of process, but you'll see that was just slightly different. if I want to load in an analysis I made, so here's one I made of that dissonance quartet by Mozart. And then there it is, but it will need the audio file. There's nothing there. So you just need to find out wherever the audio file you are working with, and everything should be all set. That's it. Remember, here are all the keyboard shortcuts. It is way faster to use if you have those, so I definitely recommend it. And that's it. Make sure if you have any issues or suggestions or anything like that, there's a Google survey that you can fill out there, and I can learn, or I can get your feedback through that means. All right, have fun.